your biggest fan.
Hi, Moon.
Yeah.
Oh my
Welcome back to the
God.
channel, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about a little bit of controversy, a little bit of chaos that's going on Twitter. It involves Fighting Jim, it involves Lee, it involves Lee Mishima, it involves D-AG, it involves a lot of things. Balancing is the topic of the discussion. You know, the developers, they're planning on doing another update with Kunimitsu where they're planning to tackle some things. Heat, aggressive attacks. Does Lee fall under that category? In my opinion, if I had to simply describe what I think make Lee strong, and this isn't me saying that they should nerf it, it's just like characters are supposed to have strengths and weaknesses. But I think an obvious strength of Lee is that he has insane counter hit tools. He can counter hit you, launch you, take you all the way to the wall with insane damage, and then he got that combo wall spike ender where he gets very favorable Oki. Now, he's not the only character who does this, where they do a combo, get an unskilled ender, guaranteed follow up, mix up. But with him, the way that he can relaunch you in certain situations and the way that he has those heat enhanced attacks in certain situations can make him a little bit problematic. But then also, if you talk about the low heat smash, I think that low rage drives were super cheap in Tekken 7. So the fact that the developers brought them back and gave them to the characters that they gave them to, it's kind of like they're asking for people to be upset. But other than that, Lee does have some good tools. Slide, stances. He's a Tekken 8 character. Now, Lee Mishima has made a post recently, and it says, Lee God6. Lee is probably at his worst, maybe even worse than season 1. I don't think he's the best option for competing, but he still has a lot of identity. In most cases, that sounds more positive than negative. Now, a lot of people were all throughout this comment section disagreeing with Lee Mishima and also bringing up the name of Fighting Jim. For those of you who don't know, Fighting Jim is a legendary player, a Lee main who's done a lot of great work in like the era of Tekken 6 and whatnot. Now, bro has retired and he does a lot of content creation. He does a lot of streaming on Twitch, and he's very successful. One thing that you will hear about Fighting Jim is that he is a lead down player. Now, the reason why people say that about him is because he basically defends his character. We know that a lot of people can have a lot of things to say about a lot of characters, and they may not have the skills or the knowledge to back it up. Sometimes players operate off of feel. Sometimes players operate off of just like they just don't like the matchup. They don't like the character. They don't like what the tools they have. Even if there is counterplay, they just don't like it. That will always be the case, but with Lee specifically, Fighter Jim is kind of constantly fighting back against these people who say these things about the character. And I mean, you can argue whether or not you want to or not want to. When people talk this or that about Yoshimitsu, I just pray that the developers don't listen to the stupid people. There's smart ways to do things and there's a bad way to do things. Whether or not people are making bad arguments against Lee is for the developers to decide, right? They will decide it. But with Lee, a lot of people make a lot of takes about him. He is quickly rising up the list for how strong of a character he is, because this is just the thing, right? When other characters on a roster get nerfed in big ways, the characters who are untouched will rise up. And now Lee has gotten hit here and there, but, he's kind of getting stronger because so many other characters are being targeted and focused. Now, with Fighting Jim kind of throwing himself into the middle of all of these conversations, I mean, he's basically upsetting people. When people are just speaking their minds, talking about the game, and then here comes Fighting Jim like, no, you suck at the game. You didn't lab this. I'm better than you. I have more knowledge than Lee than everyone. I mean, generally, people won't be very receptive to that. Whether it's true or not, when you're on the internet and you're telling people, you're like talking down to people, got the finger in the face, it's not really going to end well. And what we saw is over the past couple of months, you can even say probably about a year now, to where all of the conversation around Lee and Lee downplay, Fighting Jim was kind of at a boiling point where there's a lot of people who are really taking shots at him, making fun of him, and it's kind of getting to him a little bit because he's on stream, he'd be talking about it on stream, he make videos responding to this, responding to that, responding to main man. And it's kind of tragic in a way where someone who really loves the character, they really are passionate about the character, and then when that character becomes the center of the discussion, you kind of can get lost in it. I remember in season 1, this is around October, Yoshimitsu was crowned top 3 in the game, the strongest character, right? And as a result, there was a lot of people who would show up to my stream and be like, you suck, you're carried by Yoshi. And I was trying to beef set some people here and there, but it really doesn't do anything to, alleviate that conversation. The only way to really make it subside is in the balancing room, right? The developers have to do what's fair to the character, but also what's fair to the defender. Now, when you talk about a character that's not really fair, you got to talk about Lydia. This is a character that is truly broken, truly problematic, and so much so to where the main man, he recently said in a video, Lydia is the worst example of gameplay ever in Tekken, and he is now refusing to rematch the character until she is nerfed. Now, that's a major statement from a big content creator. A lot of people probably will follow suit or have already been doing so themselves. I think this character getting buffed it the way she did in season 2 and the developers not addressing that in season 3 is quite diabolical. It's kind of like favoritism in a way, right? A lot of people are sensing a type of favoritism in the balance from the developers, not addressing King, Brian Fury, like walking away a little bit untouched, and then the DLC characters largely unchecked, or a slap on the wrist. Lydia is unscathed. Now, we know previously Nakatu stated that the characters he's most proud of is Lydia and Reina, and hopefully his biases of the characters do not ruin like the reputation. Like, I think Reina can go on to be one of the faces of Tekken, but if Nakatu keeps balancing her the way that she is, 4-4-2 stance mix-up, whether or not you can stop it or not is not really the issue. It's not really the counter thing, because if we go back to the Fighting GM Lee situation, right? They were talking about some of Lee's stances, back 3-3, hitman stance. I think it was back 2-1 and stuff like that. They were talking about Lee's attacks. And Fighting GM's counter argument to everyone is that you can sidestep it. You can sidestep and beat a lot of options. For other characters, you don't really have that. They will jack you up. But at the same time, a lot of people were showcasing where if you do try to step, you get clipped. Now, there was a lot of people dogpiling on Fighting Jim because I think he said the wrong side to step. You know, Lee mains don't know the left hand versus the right hand, etc. But generally, what he was trying to say is that you can beat a lot of options if you step. Now, there was still people who were countering that and say, well, you're just guessing, right? Because even though you step, you can still get counter hit if you guess incorrectly. And kind of how I said at the beginning of the video, where he will counter hit you, take you to the wall, heat activate, diabolical mix-up, heat activates, low heat smashes. So people are kind of just sick of that experience, right? Lee is a very cool character, and he didn't used to be this way where he could put you in a situation and then you could choose sidestep left or get counter hit or stand there and get counter hit, right? And with Lydia, you really don't even have an opportunity to think. She just rushes you down, forward mix-ups, chip damage, so you're being punished for blocking. And then if she decides to do that unblockable high, it's big damage, guaranteed follow-ups, installs all over the place, you're cooked. And people are just sick of it. And really why Fighting Jim is getting so much heat is because with him defending Lee, he's kind of defending stance 8. And we know people are sick of it. And the developers are seeming like they want to take action against it, but I don't know. What I also thought was tragic about this is Fighting Jim says, I'm done with Twitter. You just constantly see him getting into battles with people. I think it's a never-ending cycle of chaos and controversy. This conversation took a huge turn when Sachi showed up. They were both taking shots at each other, who's better than who, drowning in tournaments this, go compete in tournaments that, pro players doing pro player things. But Sachi responds to Fighting GM and says, if you want to clown on other people's results, how about you take your no money having to a tournament and we can first to 10 offline for 100. And this was after Fighting GM challenged Sachi, Lee mirror match first to 10 online. Now, Fighting GM responded to what Sachi said by saying this: ducking an online first to 10 today to hide behind a hypothetical offline match is crazy. It's going to have to be over 1,000 next time if we're at the same major. Keep projecting being broke though. Now, this is the part where everyone lost it. Sachi responds and says, where's the fun in an online set? I'll pay for your flight to Evo/CEO. You reimburse me plus dinner if I win. So this is kind of where we're at, right? Conversation about characters being powerful. You have two top players who play the same character. One person's arguing that the character is strong. The other is arguing that they're not strong. Both players want to play each other and prove who has real skill. Kind of going back to the Speed Kicks versus Avery situation, where those two guys did a Jin mirror match to prove that Jin is broken. And at the end of it, Speed Kicks told Avery, we don't want to hear your opinions on Jin anymore. You lost. That's kind of what Sachi is trying to prove, but the major hurdle right now is whether or not it will be online or offline. You know, Fighter Jim is kind of retired. Like I said, he's a content creator, and he doesn't really want to do the whole traveling thing, which is understandable. Costs a lot of money. Got to leave the comfort of your home. You got to do this. You got to do that. I completely understand. It's up for him to make that decision. But when you circle back to the conversation of Lee, will the developers target this character and nerf him? Will it be fair? Because you got to talk about how the developers have been targeting certain characters more than others, and players who play those characters feel like it's unfair. Yes, thank you for my nerfs. I could play Tekken now, but all of these characters are still not playing Tekken. So interesting conversation around and around. We see so many people talking about so many things, from Kazuya King, Lydia Lee, Yoshimitsu, etc., etc., etc. The only thing that could truly bring it into this conversation is developers finally stepping in and restoring peace to the world with a good update, balance, etc. But that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Like, subscribe, and bye-bye.